Hi, I'm Professor Kathleen Offenholly from the Borough of Manhattan Community College. In this video, I'm going to talk about how you can use games to teach pre-service teachers or liberal arts math students, with some tips for online classes as well. Why games, though? So games can counteract anxiety, and if you're teaching students who are going to be elementary school teachers, they are some of the most anxious about math, which they may then pass on to their future students. So it's time to nip that anxiety in the bud right away. Games also help students learn to work together, as you'll see in the first game that I'm going to show you. And games evolve positive emotions, which helps students think better. More reasons in the rest of the video. So first day of class, Icebreaker. This is a great one to play that I play every semester in the first day of class, called Lines and Blobs. Line up alphabetically by first name. And that's all I tell my students. All I say is A is here and Z is over there, line up. And they help each other and they figure it out. And they get some amazing collaboration going just by lining up alphabetically by first name. When they're done lining up, I ask everyone to say their name to make sure that it worked. It worked. Then right from there where they're standing, I say, now we're going to play blobs. And everybody blob, make groups by what age you want to teach. But I'm sure you can think of other things you might want to ask your students. And then from there, after they blob by what age they want to teach, the final blob, I ask them to blob by what kind of pet you have. Now you can ask students other ones like to blob by favorite color or anything else you might want to learn from your students. It was fun, right? It was fun, and just having fun could be enough, because fun is great to have on the first day of class. But also, you had some things you accomplished there. You found out all their names, they found out each other's names, and they learned that they could work together collaboratively way before you asked them to do group work or anything else like that. So you could probably think of many ways to modify this as your first day icebreaker, thinking about what you want to learn from your students and what might be fun for them to share. Games promote learning in the way that they promote all of the strands of mathematical proficiency. This is from Kilpatrick. Because when you play a game, you influence each of these strands of mathematical thinking. So students have to adapt as the rules change. They have to strategize. They have concepts ideally built into the game, math concepts that they practice within the game, which is a lot to ask. Sometimes you can't get all of that to happen in a good math game. Sometimes you can. But no matter what game you play, it's always going to influence productive disposition, which is the desire to do math, the desire to actually do a problem. You'll find your students have it more when they've played a game. The theoretical background from James G. He talks about how learning works best when new challenges are pleasantly frustrating. That's Vygotsky's zone of proximal development. Katie Salen talks about how games work the way good teachers work, because a game is always thinking, what does my player need to learn to know next? That's just what we do when we teach. So let's see how this works in a game. This is Biz Buzz for base systems, which I play with my math for elementary ed or liberal arts students. I tell them we make a circle, and I say we're gonna count. Person one says one, next person says two, next person says three, four, and then biz. You can't say five. And then we start again, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then biz. You can't say five. And you're going to continue in that way, but the person who is about to say 5 bizzes is not allowed to say 5 bizzes. They must say buzz. And that's all the directions I give. So away we go, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, biz. 1, 2, 3, 4, biz. And often this person doesn't get it right. And people laugh a little bit and tell them what the right answer is supposed to be. And nobody seems to mind the way they usually mind when they get a math problem wrong. And then we continue, 1, 2, 3, 4, biz. 1, 2, 3, 4, Biz, 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 biz. And here comes 1, 2, 3, 4. You can't say biz 5 times. Buzz. And hopefully that person has realized the rule, but if they don't, everybody jumps in to tell them. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, biz. And now I ask my students to tell me when we were doing the game, what had we counted when we got to the 13th person? And the students think about it and are pretty quick to say we had done biz, biz, and then 3 more. And if not, we start and we count it again, just so that they can see where the 13th person was. And I might ask, well, how about the 24th person? What had we counted by 24? How about the 26th person? And they can answer this in pairs, and then we talk about the answers. And as you probably realized, we're doing base 5. So we progress from there after having counted in base 5. I give them base 5 blocks, which are flat squares, rods, and units in base 5, and we make numbers in base 5. And then we progress to other bases in that class. And at the end of the class, we play the game again in base 7. Without much instruction, they get how to play the game in base 7. It's pretty awesome. When I first started teaching base systems, it took students 3 classes to understand how to use base systems, how to make numbers in other bases. And then I brought in manipulatives and I knocked it down to 2 classes. Manipulatives helped. And now that I play this game and then the manipulatives, it only takes 1 class for them to get the concept. And after that, they just practice. It's really amazing. I think it's because they had fun. I think that really helps them learn better. The original Biz Buzz, by the way, was not about bases. It was about multiples. And it was originally a drinking game. And it works like this. For multiples of 2 and 3, you could pick any multiples you want. It would be played by saying biz for any multiples of 2, and then buzz for any multiples of 3. So multiples of 3 are buzz, multiples of 2 are biz. And so it would be like this. First person says 1, next person does not say 2, they say biz. Next person does not say 3, they say buzz. Next person is person 4. They say biz because 4 is a multiple of 2. Next person says 5. And the person who would say 6 says Biz Buzz. I find this game unbelievably difficult. My students are better at it than I am. We continue counting until you get to person 12, who also says Biz Buzz. I can't imagine playing this while drinking. I would be so bad at it. The important takeaway, though, is how much my students are willing to play this. And it's fun, and it's really hard, and they don't mind. And that's because games create, here's the numbers, just for you to see that 12, but normally, right, we don't have the numbers. Games create this world apart, where you have your own rules, your own world, and it's okay for something to be hard, because it's a game. This is from Johann Huizinga from 1955. He said that games create their own world apart from the ordinary world. And I think that's a lot of why games work so well. So let's play another game, the game of set. So in the game of set, you're using cards to try to create a set of 3. I'm not going to go over the rules a lot because you can go find them. It's really fun. I use the game of set as at the beginning of all the classes where we're talking about sets and logic. And it's amazing how focused my students are on figuring out what makes a set. You don't need the card deck. You can go to the set daily puzzle and play that. And the students try to find which 3 cards make a match. And there's a bunch of sets to find. It's really fun. Guess My Rule is another really fun game to play. The way you play Guess My Rule with numbers is you put down the start of a series of some kind and ask the students to guess the next one. Sometimes students guess 1 here. Sometimes somebody says 2. 2 is the correct next number. And then I ask them to continue to guess. Sometimes they'll say two, another two, which would make sense, right? But it's not, it's three. And I tell them, don't say the rule, only say the next number. At this point, sometimes students are getting that the next one is going to be five, usually not. And here, a lot of students get that the next one is eight. As you might know, this is the Fibonacci sequence. You can do this with any sequence, and the students really like it. What I like about it is it prevents the smartest student from raising their hand right away with the rule, because they're only allowed to say the next number, not the rule. And it allows other students more time to think. In elementary school, you can play this with multiples, but in elementary school, you can just play this with shapes with very young children. This one I play with my grown-up students and ask them to try to figure out the rule for A, for B, and for C. They're all multiples. That's fun. And then I ask them to make their own Guess My Rule circles and trade with another student, which is also really fun. Here's a Guess My Rule using the set deck. Instead of pairing up three cards, just using the set deck to make different rules. That's a fun one to try to figure out. Tangrams are another great way to get your students playing. They're more of a puzzle, but then it leads me into talking about fractions with them and parts and wholes, which is very good for them to do in a less stressful atmosphere than the way they learned fractions, maybe. So in an online class, what I might do is have students analyze games and find them. So I can ask them to post an online base 10 game that they liked, and then ask to comment on someone else's base 10 game. I also ask students to analyze games. Motion Math has terrific free games, so they can play them and say, what students would learn, what kids would learn if they played this game. Chicken Coop Fractions is a terrible game, and that gives students a chance to analyze a bad game. There's a free little, trial version there that they can use to see it. And finally, I love playing Tiny Polka Dot. I don't usually praise commercial games, but this one is just lovely. And I just ask students to mill around and find people with the same number of dots, or same number. And then I ask them how they would play it in their classes, since so many of them are going to teach little kids, pre-K and kindergarten. This is a great game for them to see that even little kids can do some math. And I ask them what they think it teaches. So we did a study of students at BMCC. These were remedial students in developmental math classes, and they learned quite a bit more in the game-based games. But also we know that they're fun. So I think it's really worth trying yourself. And for further reading, you can look at any of these people, or you can just try playing. And you can also feel free to go over to my blog or to look up my OER, Open Educational Resource, which is a Math for Elementary Ed free textbook. And any of those things will help you learn more about games, or shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you.